Well, first of all, I want to thank Senator Blunt and Heinrich for working so very hard on this bill to try and solve a difficult problem that's plagued us for years, and for all of you all being here. Ms. Pauley, in my home state of Arkansas, I found that farmers and ranchers are some of the best stewards of our land. That is why partnerships between the federal government and agriculture community are imperative to address species management and recovery. Personally, I believe the federal government should be incentivizing private landowners and making voluntary conservation efforts, those that are working in that regard. It appears that under the current structure of ESA, private landowners are not getting due credit for the time, the money, and labor they spend on voluntary conservation efforts. One of the reasons that I'm really pleased to be a co-sponsor of the Recovering America's Wildlife Act is because it would provide on the ground actors such as conservation organizations, state authorities, and tribal governments with the resources they need to pursue collaborative conservation efforts in their regions. Can you talk a little bit, share your opinion on how will these additional resources help ease the tension felt by landowners when dealing with the Endangered Species Act that we currently have?
Well, Senator, I so appreciate that question because much like Arkansas, Missouri is a state of 93% private land ownership. And so that private lands piece, we cannot accomplish conservation on the ground in Missouri without the help, the assistance, the support of our private landowners. Private land, really capacity and assistance is so important to us that we've created an entire branch in our agency to add more boots on the ground, additional cost share, cooperative positions with other organizations to make sure that we have the ability to reach those landowners that either want to do proactively conservation or are in need, perhaps of reasons of ESA. We have an example in Missouri. We have this little aquatic species called the Nangua darter, and it needs really good water quality. And so we came alongside these landowners that farmed in these watersheds that had the Nangua darter and helped them through cost share and technical assistance with string bank protection programs and other soil health programs to ensure that we were meeting shared goals together. I think that's where RAWA is so critical because states have those relationships with the landowners. They're our neighbors. And, those state-driven, local-driven relationships are absolutely critical. The collaborative nature of RAWA, the voluntary nature of RAWA is so critical moving forward. Conservation for the future has to be collaborative, and that's what we would do with these RAWA dollars.
Very good. As a nation, we've experienced a decline of 6 million hunting license purchasers in the last decade, Ms. Pauley. According to a recent study by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, an estimated 58.8% or $3.3 billion of conservation funds to state wildlife agencies come from hunting and fishing related activities, either directly through the sale of licenses, tags, and stamps, or indirectly through the federal excise taxes on hunting, recreational shooting, and angling equipment. It's clear that hunters are a significant force behind our nation's conservation efforts. In your opinion, what is driving the decline in license purchases, and what are the potential ramifications of the lost revenue to the wildlife conservation efforts?
Senator, we could probably spend the rest of the time talking about potential reasons behind the decline in hunting, and I'm going to say it's everything from a society that's moved away more from rural areas and is more urbanized. They've got more time commitments, so it's an issue of priority setting. Just the loss of that passing down of one generation from another. Many of us grew up hunting because we had grandparents or parents who do the same. And so much of that, I think, is just related to societal changes, et cetera. But you bring up an important point. Much of the conservation efforts over the last 8 decades are because of hunters and anglers. You mentioned the percentage, very high percentage, coming either from license fees or from the excise taxes. So hunters and anglers have done their part. they have paved the way, and, you know, it's because of them that we have the conservation success stories. But the formula going forward has to be different. It has to be something picked up by all of us.
Right. No, I agree, and that's the point. You know, we're going to have to backfill that, and again, I think we've got a great opportunity to do that, and that's what this bill is all about, is providing that opportunity. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.